Hi, I'm Jilly G. Welcome to my kitchen. Today I'm going to show you cheesecake, and this recipe has no crust. You could put a crust on this if you want to, but it's really good even without a crust. First up, we're going to get our pan ready. I have probably 2 tablespoons of butter here. It's really soft. I'm just going to butter this springform pan, and it's about a 9-inch springform pan. And just make sure to get everywhere nice and coated with butter. Even up the sides. Now that that's finished, just set that aside. Move this out of the way. I have my oven preheated to 300, and I have about 8 cups or so of water just heating up over here in this pan. We're gonna cook the cheesecake in a roasting pan in a water bath. I'll show you how we do that. So first up, I have this bowl, and we're gonna do 5 eggs into here. And I just pick out the little white bits. You don't want them in your cheesecake. You could strain your cheesecake after it's all mixed together, but this saves a step of straining it. Last egg, let's get rid of our mess. So to our 5 eggs, we're gonna add 2 cups of sour cream. And you really want everything to be room temperature for this recipe. So just dump your sour cream into your eggs. And I've got my 4 packages of cream cheese on the stovetop there just to stay room temperature, warmish. So hand mixer, just mix these together just till they're combined. And then set this aside and bring over our large bowl here and get your 4 packages of cream cheese. They're really soft. They're not hot, but they're really soft. And this is whole fat sour cream, not the low fat. Same with, this is whole fat cream cheese, not the low fat. And same with my sour cream, it's all whole fat. And we're gonna use our same beaters here. Get that off of there. So to our 4 8-ounce packages of cream cheese, I have 1 stick of butter, a half a cup of butter. And we're just gonna pour this in here and mix this all together. Again, really soft, room temperature. And beat this till it's really smooth. And scrape down the bowl just to make sure that butter and cream cheese is all mixed in before we mix it all together. So now that this is really mixed together and nice and smooth, I'm gonna add in our egg and sour cream mixture all into here, and then we'll mix it together. And just mix this medium-low speed. Scrape down the bowl, and I'm just making sure there's nothing stuck on the bottom here. And once that's really mixed together, I have just shy of 1 cup of honey. As always, I'll give you the equivalents if you're using sugar. So all in here, just mix this together. It doesn't take very much. 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, and just give this a mix. I have a 1.5 teaspoons here of vanilla bean paste and 1 teaspoon of lemon juice, and keep mixing. Make sure to get all of it off of here. And I'm just gonna scrape down the bowl, make sure there's nothing hanging out on the bottom here. Give it kind of 1 final stir. You could do this in a stand mixer. So I have this roasting pan here, and I have a little rack that fits inside of it. You don't need a rack, it works. And traditionally with cheesecake, you don't want it to sit in the water bath because it will seep in through and make your cheesecake really soggy. So what I do, instead of using foil to wrap around the bottom, I use a crock pot bag. An oven turkey bag works really well. So I just open it up, put the pan inside of it. And of course, when you're pouring your water into your roasting pan, you don't want it to go in this layer. So just make sure to kind of bunch it up around the sides here. And then we'll put it in the pan. Bring this closer. And then I just make sure that it's up high enough, but you don't want, if the cheesecake rises a little bit, you don't want it to get stuck to the side of this bag. So just kind of make sure that it's up enough that when you pour your water in, it doesn't go in the bag. And I just kind of tuck it under a little bit. And now we're just gonna pour our filling in. Make sure to get all of it. And my water is just at a simmer. And so I'm just gonna pour it in the side here. Again, making sure to not get it inside of the bag. And you want it to be about halfway up the sides of the cheesecake pan. And we're gonna put this in the oven. It will go for about 2 hours and 15 minutes. Be very careful. And while that cooks, I'll show you how to make some homemade strawberry syrup. While the cheesecake is cooking in the oven, I have a whole bunch of strawberries here. We want to cut enough to equal 4 cups. It doesn't matter how big of pieces, just roughish chunks, because we're gonna cook them and mash them anyway. So just start cutting up your strawberries, again, to equal 4 cups. You could put all of these in a food processor if you want to and have a more smooth consistency of a syrup, but I kind of like it a little bit chunky, so I just mash it with the masher and call it good. Last strawberry. When you realize that you have enough for 8 cups instead of 4 cups, just do a double batch. So let me clean this up and I'll bring you into the stovetop and show you how we make this syrup. So what we'll need is our 8 cups of strawberries. I have the juice of 1 lemon. I used 1 teaspoon of it for the cheesecake, and we'll just use the rest of it. And I've got some honey and vanilla, and I'll show you how we put it all together. In the same pan that we had our hot water in for the cheesecake, put your strawberries. And I just turn the heat on to low, medium low, and I just start mashing a little bit. We'll continue mashing as we go along, but just to break them up a little bit in the beginning. Half a cup of honey. The rest of our lemon juice, I'm just gonna strain it in case there's any seeds in there. 2 teaspoons of vanilla, and just mix all this together. And I'm gonna start turning the heat up to just about medium. You could do this with frozen strawberries, but frozen fruit usually has more liquid. And so you would wanna cook it longer to get some of that liquid down. And I want this to just come up to a simmer. Once this starts warming up, just periodically mash. Once your strawberry syrup comes up to a boil like this, I'm going to turn the heat down to low and just let this simmer and reduce some of this liquid. Once your strawberry syrup is reduced as much as you want it to be, you could keep going till it's really thick. Turn off the heat, and I have some lids over here simmering. I'm going to turn those off too. And bring this over here. We're going to put them in some little jars. These are little pint jars, little squatty pint jars. I don't think we'll even fill up maybe 2, but we'll see. Give this a good stir. Bring our lids closer, and this closer, and just start filling up your jars. You don't have to can them. You can just put them in the freezer. Do a little switcheroo here. And this will get a little bit thicker as it cools off. Switcheroo again. And I'm just going to pour this last little bit in here. Move that out of the way. Not really enough for that jar. I'm not going to put a lid on that one, but these other 3 I will. Wipe off your rims here. And that strawberry syrup is simmered for about 25 minutes or so. Get your lids, hot pads, and tighten them up and flip them upside down. And let those go for about 20 minutes or so, and then we'll flip them back over. And about that time, the cheesecake will almost be ready to come out of the oven. I'm just gonna leave this one to cool off, and we'll eat that one first. So these went for about 30-ish minutes. I'm just gonna gently turn them over and then move this whole thing aside. And our cheesecake has been in the oven for about 2.5 hours. It's ready to come out. very carefully because that water is bubbling in there. And it's puffed up quite a bit higher than the sides of the pan. It will sink back down as it cools. Here comes the tricky part. Very gently, we're gonna transfer this over to the cooling rack. So try not to get the plastic bag that's in there. And gently lift to your cooling rack. And now is the hardest part of this recipe. This has to cool off for 4 hours. Once it's cooled off for 4 hours, stick it in the fridge overnight, wrap it in plastic wrap. I just leave it in this springform pan, wrap the whole thing in plastic wrap, and I put it on a plate in case it's a little weepy or anything. I know that sounds like the worst thing ever is to wait so long, but it really is worth it. I'll show you what it looks like after 4 hours of cooling. As I mentioned, it did puff up quite a bit here, and that will sink back down into the pan. And you can see how nice and golden brown it is. So I'll show you what it looks like as we wrap it up and put it in the fridge. My cheesecake has been cooling for about 4 hours. It's just barely warm on the very bottom, but it is a little bit greasy. And so what I usually do is I have a plate here, and I just put it on this plate, and I'm gonna wrap it up to put it in the fridge overnight, but I'll bring you in closer and show you what it looks like. As you can see, it sunk down quite a bit, and it's starting to pull away from the sides a little bit, but once it's really set up, again, overnight, I just wrap the whole thing. If you make this really early in the morning, and it has all of that time to cool off and set up in the fridge, you could serve it the evening that you make it. And my strawberry syrup is nice and cool, and I've made peach syrup the exact same way as the strawberry syrup. I had some extra peaches, and I didn't get as much because it was a little bit less peaches. Both of those will be perfect to go on top of our cheesecake. So into the fridge overnight, and we'll pick you back up tomorrow. Here we are tomorrow. It's been in the fridge overnight. It's nice and set up. So what we're gonna do is just take off this springform pan, and it should just come right out like that. Put this over here. Let's cut into it. Looks really good. I'm just going to use the knife to scrape it off of the spatula here. You won't miss the crust. Here's some of our strawberry syrup that we made. Just put a little bit of this on here. It looks really good. Turn this around so you can see how well it holds a slice there. Let's give this a try. It's really good. So you want to keep this wrapped up in the fridge. You'll notice it will get better and better every day, and it won't last very long, at least not in my house. And this cheesecake is good enough to eat off of the floor, which I've done before. In a disaster, it fell off my counter, and took a fork and found the pieces that weren't touching the floor, just like a TV show. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.